So, Stephen King writes some weird shit. I mean, in the past year or so alone, we've seen Salem's Lot, The Monkey, The Long Walk, and God knows how many TV shows based off of his other books and IPs. And it's kind of amazing how different the books he writes are, because he's very much known as the horror guy, with It, Carrie, Pet Sematary, and the like. But then he also wrote Shawshank and The Green Mile and, Life of Chuck. And he must have had some kind of kick on writing dystopian novels that use movement-based activity as a critique of capitalism, because of both The Long Walk and The Running Man existing. Now, I've talked about The Long Walk already, and I'm pretty confident that you know all about that. But I was just as excited for that movie coming out this year as I was for The Running Man. I'm not as familiar with this novel as I was with The Long Walk. I mean, hell, that one inspired me to write my own short story that got published in a horror book somehow. But that doesn't mean I didn't love the general idea behind the themes it was covering. Dystopian futures always interest me, and I especially love delving into the technological aspects and how these impact the day-to-day of humanity. Self-driving cars, screens surrounding everything, DNA scanners, and tons of security. What is this going to replace, and what void is it going to create? And frankly, The Running Man says the only thing missing, at least for the upper class, is entertainment. Much like lions needing to be given live prey or they grow bored and refuse to eat. First though, let's talk about the movie. The Running Man focuses on John Running, who wanted to walk twice at the same time. Okay, our protagonist is Ben Richards, played by Glenn Powell, down on his luck ex-military who has been blacklisted from employment because he was too forgiving and altruistic towards his colleagues, as if the world wasn't mean enough as is. Ben is only just kept afloat by his wife Sheila, played by Jamie Lawson, a waitress at a hostess club and sole provider for their infant daughter, currently in and out of sickness. And Ben and Sheila can't afford to get her the medicine she needs to beat it. Despite being blacklisted from work, like presumably many others, Ben sees an opportunity in game shows. Seeing people get paid minimum 75 of their currency they call new dollars, where apparently only 50 is needed to get the medicine they need, so you can imagine that each new dollar costs a lot. While trying to join the easier game shows focusing on trivia and more, Ben meets with Dan Killian, played by Josh Brolin, an exec who created The Running Man, a show where a few people get sent out into the public to hide, with the privatized police, specialized hunters led by McCone, a masked menace who has killed countless Running Man participants with the power of his knife, Destiny, and his gun, Faith. Not to mention, every single human being nearby planning on turning them in or killing them themselves, because they will get a cash reward for doing so. Every day they survive is more money in their check, which they get whether they survive or not. You just have to last 1 month and you'll be free with $1 billion new dollars. And since we know what 50 can get you, it's kind of obvious how rigged the show must be to have that attached. But everyone is going to be calling for your blood, and nobody has ever survived to day 30. Dan is a smart fucker though, and he plays on Ben's anger, telling him he's the one who can finally win it, to be the people's champion because of his rage and vitriol. But Ben? The same anger is going to burn down everything he comes into contact with, and he just wants to make sure his family stays safe. But can he survive the 30 days and get back to them, or is he just going to fall like the many before him did? Now, there's a lot of things that I have opinions on when it comes to The Running Man. But let's start with the positives. First off, this is far and away above the 1987 movie. I watched that this year, and man, it is just not good. It's ugly, it has terrible performances, especially from Arnie. It only interacts with the core themes of the story in the last 10 minutes. It has a plethora of annoying action movie one-liners that are not natural and don't fit the context they're in at all. And it all felt like one extra long episode of Gladiators. And saying that might have been a huge insult to Gladiators. In contrast, I think the new movie gets a lot more right. Glenn Powell is giving a much better performance and a more believable and enjoyable Ben Richards. Although comparing his origin to Arnie's, and I'm kind of curious why they changed it. In 1987, Ben was fired and blacklisted from work because he refused to fire on some protesters and beat up his colleagues who would have done it instead. While 2025, Ben just was too nice and stopped his colleagues from dying. Dan Killian says later you stuck your neck out for them one too many times and got your head chopped off. And obviously in the book, Ben is much more of a grey character morality-wise because that's kind of Stephen King's thing most of the time. It's the same across most of his adaptations. And I'm fine with Ben being portrayed as a more respectable, fair guy, but considering how fucking angry and violent he is, I would have been fine with him being fired from just having a violent outburst. Maybe someone insulted his girlfriend Sheila because she works at a hostess club despite not partaking in sex work, which is another change made from the book. I did like this inclusion though, since Ben is often pissed off by people making assumptions about the one he loves. But that kind of anger and hatred towards all of the over-commercialization of the world that had thrown him out really makes for a compelling plot and emotional core to root for. Ben meets several characters along the way from different facets of life. You have two young and street-smart rebels trying to help him inspire hope into the people watching the show. A wannabe revolutionary scorned by the death of his idol after he quit his policing job due to the privatization of the military, becoming a hot dog stand worker like God intended. And an upper-class woman who finds the struggles of the poor and destitute like Ben and everyone else trying out for the Running Man completely foreign to her, even believing the show is fake. I swear this kind of storytelling of the main characters hopping between people to act as mirrors to certain aspects of themselves or society has a name, but I don't remember what it was. And while some of these characters were memorable and funny, I kinda just didn't like the structure at all. Personally, I would have preferred it if the things Ben learns about the Running Man, about certain civilians, and how life was for other characters, was given from the other contestants. Since they're kind of nothing characters that need their roles to be explained by somebody else, I feel like this would have made the pacing better since these scenes could have slotted into the first act before the Running Man even started. And speaking of the Running Man starting, I'm really disappointed with the game show aspect of the movie, because I want to see chase scenes, action segments, Ben evading people through quick thinking, stealth, and anything he can get his hands on. And the scenes where he does do that are probably my favorites of the movie. Like this really cool one take that was in the trailers where he's running through this building, but it's just so short-lived. You have Edgar Wright here, creator of Hot Fuzz and my second favorite movie of all time, Baby Driver. Both with amazing action sequences, plenty of one-takes and needle drops, and yet he just completely fumbles on all of his specifically stylized aspects of the movie. It really does just feel sauceless. And that makes me really sad. At one point, Edgar Wright was my favorite director. I need him to find his personality again for his next project because it's just not enjoyable to watch at this point. Yeah, there were some scenes with cool cinematography, but it felt like trying to start up an old lawnmower, and it makes a working noise for a second, but just fizzles out. But instead of considering what could have been, how is the actual content of the narrative? Personally, I think the structure of the movie is all over the place. I think just enough time is spent on building up to the Running Man, but then once we get there, it quickly loses focus. We go to all kinds of locations and have a few action sequences and chase segments, and I mentioned how I would have liked this to go differently, but honestly, I don't like the structure of the movie, especially here. It's not paranoid enough. There's not much tension when Ben is actually traveling, and the closest we get to a tense scene just has the movie lie to us about what's happening through a dream sequences. I like the inclusion of the 10 minutes of footage because seeing what Ben wants to say to the public was a pretty neat way to document his experience and explore his feelings. But too much time is spent not doing much, and then all of a sudden we've gone to 3 different locations without having anything interesting going on between Ben and the hunters. Also off topic, Michael Cera's character was an absolute highlight of the movie, but his introduction was awful. It was a really confusing time skip, and I definitely wasn't a fan. My least favorite point of the movie was as the Running Man continued and they focused a lot more on the heavy themes of entertainment being prioritized over everything, because it felt like the stakes just dropped to the floor. There was nothing tense or worrying or being invested until the final act, and it was at this point that they introduced another key character? It's kind of insane to do so late. She was fine, I guess. She just didn't fit too well into the story, even if I like what she represents. It really did feel like Ben had plot armor too, which you could see as kind of intentional, but it makes it hard to get immersed in the story. I would have loved some Terminator-esque, relentless chase segments and think they would have fit perfectly. The movie is also just under 2 hours, 15 minutes, and I really did feel that time. At least the original, with all its god-awful qualities, had okay pacing because Arnie would knock off each hunter one by one before returning to the studio. But this time, it's very different and nowhere near as consistently moving forward, even with the time limit set by the game show. I did like a twist presented in the final act, but it also doesn't do much for the impacted characters and the movies didn't really need it. I guess it was just to add some depth to a pretty one-note person. A couple other twists felt pretty stupid though, and they relied on just straight misinformation. And while they have a place in the movie, I just don't think it works as well when conveying it to the audience. Especially when the entire ending is built off of this, and speaking of, I didn't like how the ending turned out. I think one fight was done well, and the rest were just over way too quickly. It felt way too James Bond. And a lot of the aspects of the ending were changed from the book, mainly to line up with Ben's updated character, and the very sanitized version of the world and the people that inhabit it. I actually thought for a second they were going with the original ending, but nope, they chickened out. I think it would have been much better for the movie, not only because of what it's saying about activism and how enough rage and charisma can get you to start a movement to take back what is rightfully yours, but it would have ended the movie! I swear, after what should have been the ending, there was just scene after scene after scene, and like one of them was good. They really over-explained themselves with the theme, and it was like rubbing my face in it. I don't mind movies being unsubtle, but there's a difference between that and just repeatedly showing or telling you the themes of the movie in the same way, multiple times, that are completely unnecessary. Especially the literal monologue that is a borderline soliloquy from a Shakespeare play, like presented to the audience, that pissed me off to no end. You know what? I was gonna give this movie a higher score, but fuck it. Just because of that, it's going down. Although a greater adaptation than the 1987 version, The Running Man fails to accurately adapt the Stephen King novel, and to alternatively modernize it into a blockbuster that is much more easily digestible. It ends up being an impersonal mess that doesn't feel like it has the touch of Edgar Wright's proven genius. It was an incredibly disappointing watch, even with the great performances, especially with Glenn Powell giving it his all, and the fun effects and sequences. There's a few standouts here and there, but I just wanted it to wrap up for most of my viewing time. With its confusing pacing, slow pace for a movie that should be non-stop adrenaline for running and hiding, an overall lack of understanding of the importance of the nitty-gritty of the inherent themes of the story and why the ending and conclusion tied them together, I'm giving The Running Man a 5 out of 10. Maybe this SK book is cursed to never be adapted well, but I hope the actors, writers, and license holders cannot have to worry about their bills for a little bit. And if you don't want to be hunted down relentlessly for 30 days, too fucking bad! I mean, hit the subscribe button. That way you get to know exactly when new content releases. And I can let you know that I'm trying to hit 750 subscribers by the end of the year, which is a hard task, especially since only 0.2% of my viewers are subscribed. And you should check if you're part of them. But even if not, I'll keep at it. If you like this video, show that by hitting the like button and pushing it to more people. If not, that's okay too. You're still appreciated. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and get to have fun. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.
To